What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
And my name is Dave.
And this is the Deep Dive. And we are continuing in our season of Epiphany with a sermon titled Come and See.
Come and see. That's right.
You said that probably 30 times during each service, so I'm pretty impressed.
Well, it's in the text I read, it's like 3 times. And then, I said it a lot.
I really appreciated how you started with different inflections too. You're like, come and see.
Oh, that's a call to worship.
And see.
The call to worship, yeah. Yeah, but it's a great theme, and it's about the call of Jesus, the first disciples.
Yeah.
And so we'll get into that.
We'll get into it. It'll be good. Let's go. Well, Dave, as we normally do, we kind of banter here at the beginning and kind of talk about our weekends. Anything fun for you this weekend?
It was a busy weekend.
Yeah.
As you know, we had a funeral here yesterday, and so had a lot of time, even on Saturday, getting ready for that and getting ready for the services. But I did get a chance to watch some football.
Yeah.
Didn't watch every game, but watched part of probably every game.
One step closer to the Super Bowl.
It is. And I'm not really, I'm glad and will watch the game, and I'm a sports fan, but I'm not on any bandwagon for any team. So this is sort of a solicitation. If there's anybody watching this I am available to get on a bandwagon.
So bribe him as you will?
Yeah, if I had to choose a team right now, it would be Kansas City, but I can be convinced for other teams if people want to.
I would probably go Eagles. I have a couple friends who are Eagles fans, and I don't really care about the Eagles one way or another, but they have a couple Georgia boys on the team that I'm always like, all right, let them get their championship there too. So, for me, we had a daddy-daughter dance here Friday nights, which are always just precious time watching dads dance with their daughters, and me getting the chance to dance with both my daughters was special for me for sure. And then Saturday we had a music bingo birthday party for Sarah to kind of continue her week-long celebration of her birthday. Then we had church and played some board games and stuff like that. So a fun weekend, a busy weekend. Kind of got to the end of it and we're like, all right, we got to go again. So
here's another week.
That's right.
Yeah,
it doesn't stop. But speaking of not stopping, let's not stop there, and let's get into the sermon. Why don't you kind of give us a breakdown and let's do this deep dive.
Well, one of the things that I talked about on Sunday is this text comes from the scripture that I was preaching on, comes from the Gospel of John, and it is the story of the call of the first disciples. And I spent a little bit of time, which I think is an interesting thing to discuss, in that some Bibles say the gospel according to John, the gospel according to Mark. There are 4 gospels in the Bible, not just one. I think in our modern world, we'd insist that there just be one.
We kind of lump all 4 of them together.
Right. We do that. And I do that as well when we're doing things. But the truth of the matter is they each stand on their own. They're each telling a specific story. And back in biblical times, in antiquity, things like, linear things like what the order of events were not as big a deal for them as the story was.
Right.
And so they each had this story arc that they're telling, and they're really masterfully written. I mean, if you broke them down just from a literary perspective, for example, the Gospel of Mark, as you read and you see this arc that happens, it's 16 chapters, and almost exactly halfway in, it talks about Jesus turned his face towards Jerusalem. And from that time on, you see this progression, to the cross and the resurrection. And so the Gospel of John also has a particular story to a particularly audience that John is addressing. And so it's very unsimilar in some ways to the other 3 Gospels, which we sometimes call the synoptic Gospels because they're alike. A lot of the order, a lot of the stories are the same. John has a bunch of stories that aren't in the other Gospels, and the stories that are, like the call of the first disciples, they're told a little bit differently. Most of the disciples we think about like Jesus walking along the seashore and they, being called there. In the Gospel of John, we see John the Baptist. Jesus has just been baptized, and John the Baptist, he's with the disciples who eventually became Jesus' disciples, and he sees Jesus and says, "Behold, the the Lamb of God that takes away his sin. This is the one I have been telling you about. And so he has to do this 2 days in a row before they finally get the picture. Oh, you want us to go with him.
Yeah.
And so, there's a couple of them. And so they do start off with Jesus. And so, but in that whole sort of come and see thing, there is this idea that this theologian that I read, actually, it's a guy has a website called Working Preachers or something like that. He's a Lutheran guy, but he had some interesting things about that. So sort of come, show and share kind of thing. What did he call it? See, show and share.
Yeah.
John the Baptist saw Jesus.
Which is kind of a tongue twister, by the way.
Right. It is. I think it.
Say it 10 times fast.
I think it was alliterative, but see, show and share. He saw Jesus, okay, and then he showed them to the disciples. He showed Jesus, and he shared what Jesus had done, who Jesus was, the experience that he had with Jesus. And Losey says, at its heart, evangelism is noticing what God is doing in our lives, sharing that with others, and inviting them to come and see for themselves. And so, I asked the question of the congregation, why is this word evangelism? Why is sharing our faith, inviting people into our church community, why is that so hard for us? You got any suspicions on that?
Well, I will say that from the people I've talked to, when I ask like what is intimidating, and this goes from like adults to teenagers, and a lot of times it's because they feel like they don't have all the answers.
Right.
And I try to gently remind them, it's not about having all the answers. It's about just like showing them and kind of introducing them to the God through the experience you've had with it. And if you don't know an answer, be vulnerable with them and say, you know what, I don't know, but I'm open to look it up with you. You know what I mean? Like I'm open to figure it out with you until we come to an answer that we're both good with or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
you're sort of inviting them into the journey.
Yeah.
And into the community of that. If you've had a profound experience yourself, and then it may take other people, a while to get to that. Brian McLaren has this thing about belonging before believing.
Yeah.
And sometimes people come and are around a church for a while, and they may not quite believe all the things, and they may never believe all the things, but they can be there and be on board enough.
Yeah.
Is there, authentically going through their faith experience, trying to track through that. So
yeah, I also think that like we generally view it as like a society faux pas, like what they always say you don't talk about at holidays, religion and politics. So like to bring up religion, everybody's like, well, that's such a personal thing, and everybody should have the right to choose for themselves, which they should.
Yeah.
They should have the right to choose, but that doesn't mean you don't have an opportunity to talk about what you think is right.
Right.
And I would say that if you do have that opportunity to talk, just approach it respectfully. Like you don't need to shove stuff down people's throat, but like just approach it respectfully. And generally people are not going to view it as like this, oh, we don't talk about that at all.
Right.
People are generally pretty open if they open that door for you.
Yeah. And I don't think we can look at it. And one of my issues that I have with some of the evangelistic programs that are out there is that it's almost like a sales pitch.
Yeah.
It's not really a sales pitch. You're inviting people into a life and into a community. And I guess I could get into, a couple of slides that I shared yesterday. One was from an Instagram post that Nick Boker, our communications guy, had put on Instagram last week. And it was, 10 steps to inviting someone to come to church. Remember that? And so then you slide it over and it says, would you like to go to church with me?
Yeah.
And I know it's much more difficult than that.
Maybe it isn't.
I know there's more baggage around it.
Yes.
And when you said the whole thing about religion and politics, the church has got a lot of kind of attachments to it that fair or unfair can be deterrents from people. And, that we've got we've had some churches that have behaved badly and have had
in a very public limelight too.
So, there are some things to overcome. But another thing that I did was just mention that I had Googled last week. Well, let's get into the next part of the text.
Okay.
So these disciples start following Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus turns around, and the first time he speaks in the Gospel of John, he's asked a question, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? Very important question, And so I, last week, for whatever reason, Googled that question, what are you looking for, just to see what I would get back. And as I said in church, the first, 4 or 5 actually had to do with relationships and like, what are you looking for on Tinder, and those kinds of things. And then it got into a few of, what are you looking for in a job for people that were looking for a new occupation.
Yeah.
And so what that said to me was a little bit of, I don't want to call it an indictment, but like some motivation for us as a church that there are people in this world. I mean, because that's rose to the top of the algorithm of the whole Google search engine.
Yeah.
It is relationships and meaning in life, purpose in life.
And yesterday you mentioned I think you went on Cherokee Connect, which if you don't know is like a Facebook group where a bunch of Cherokee County people just go, and a lot of it's kind of like hey, there's police here, anybody know what's going on, or this burned down,
or I need a good plumber.
But there is also a lot of people looking for like community, looking like people who are specifically saying like, I don't know how to meet people, so I'm just going to post something up here,
right?
Or where would I go to see singles? Are there any groups? And it's quite interesting because if you match that with kind of what you did on your Google search, like community and relationship is really something people are striving for.
Right. That's very consistent with what that Google, what are you looking for, is. And I did see a couple of times actually couples looking for other couples
like
just to hang with, to have fun. And, I had a conversation with my son probably 6 months ago, who's up in Asheville. And he asked me the same question. He said, they're very busy and have their own business, but, do you think it would be okay to go to church just because we want to be with other young couples?
Yeah.
And there are people, and, I think that's consistent and also consistent with our vision statement here, which is empowering people to find hope, joy, and purpose.
And one of our pillars is cultivating community.
Cultivating community.
Yeah.
And so there are people, when you say, what are you looking for? And why would we invite somebody to church, or why would anybody want to come to church? There is a community here.
Yeah.
And I think we have all churches are great.
Sure.
Every church is different. But I think there's something unique here at Hickory Flat that I know there's got to be people that are hungry and seeking in their lives.
And it's such it's a beautiful community of people who really care and give from where they can. You have some older people who give through monetary donation. You have some people who are giving with their hands and feet. One of the most moving things we did almost a year ago, actually, we were doing a couples study about Lent.
Yeah.
And we had a person come up and say, hey, I heard you talking about this. If you need childcare so that people can actually come to your study, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, that's very
special.
You know what I mean? Like, wasn't solicited, wasn't asked, nobody had to twist an arm. It was, hey, I will do this for you to open up a door so that these people can come. And, that's just a sample of how community wraps around each other here.
Yeah, that's a good story. And there's all kinds of stories that would reflect that. But anyway, Jesus is asking this important question. What are you looking for? And so the disciples respond by asking him a question, where are you staying? And, I kind of made a joke out of that yesterday. It's like, you got Jesus there, you got this question he's asking, you can ask him anything you want to, you ask him, where are you staying? But, there is a context to that. And it was not unusual for people to go and stay and study with whatever rabbi they were following. And so as they were becoming his followers, Jesus then, is asking, what are you looking for? And he's like, where are you staying? We want to be your followers. And but his response to, where are you staying? He says, come and see. It could be like, come and see, it's right down here. But it really was, I think it was come and see in this invitation to join in with him, and I talked about a little bit about that it sort of turns something on its head, and that we talk about in a lot of the churches, that inviting Jesus into our lives.
Yeah.
But in fact, what we see in this text is Jesus inviting them into his life, to what he was doing. And so I think it's really good for us to think about is like, do we want to get on board with what God is doing in the world right now? Or do we want it to be all focused on come in here, meet my needs, that sort of stuff? But no, I want to get on board and join in with what Jesus is doing. So I really kind of liked that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And it's important when we read some of these early stories to understand, these are Jewish faith, or this is the Jewish faith kind of unfolding, and this relationship between rabbi and disciple. It was very. It's not like, oh, let me show up to your church and listen to you for an hour. It was like, let me come be with you and learn everything you're doing. And then the rabbi would take him in as like a way of saying like, hey, I believe you can do what I can do. So this invitation to come and see, it's like, come, let me show you the things that I'm about so that you can take it forward. Like, it's a really cool invitation, actually.
I think so too. But I do think there's several takeaways from this for us as a congregation, and for anybody who may be listening who is a Christ follower. It is this idea that there are people that we just need a simple invitation.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten gun shy on asking people some stuff about sharing our faith, and I think that people are just looking for community. They are looking for meaning in their life, meaning and purpose in their life. And we're not trying to do a big sales pitch, cram anything down anybody's throat, but to invite them to come alongside and participate in the community and in the beauty that that grows out of that.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you kind of said that church right now, for some people, has been in the news in a lot of bad light. So it almost might be embarrassing in some way to kind of come out and talk about your Christian faith and your Christian life. But also, what about the life change? Like, if we just focus on the negative and how people have spun it, then we're always going to shut down shop. You know what I mean? But it's also about looking at the way that God has changed many lives over the course of history, and what is he doing today? What is he doing in our church? Let's hear those stories and share from within those stories. I've experienced God in a lot of spaces in a lot of ways, and that's where I can share from, and I'm not the type that's going to go stand on a box in the middle of a crowded area and go, come and see Jesus. You know what I mean? Like that's not my style, but I would happily, set up a board game with 3 or 4 other people and talk about it while we're hanging out, and vibe it. And that's, you find it within your own strengths and your own space that you're at peace and comfort. But a lot of times it just comes up organically even. And it's about taking advantage of the organic situation when it happens. Because there's a lot of times when you're like, I should have said something.
Yeah. Going back to what Losi said about, noticing what God is doing in our lives, sharing that with others, and then asking them, inviting them to come and see for themselves.
Yeah.
That's quite different than getting a hardcore, evangelistic, here's the 4 spiritual laws I want to stick down your throat kind of thing. But inviting them into a friendship and like, this is made the world of difference for me.
Yeah.
And it's important for me. And, those friendships will at least come and see,
right?
Whether they go or not. I mean, like when Jesus invited them to come and see, there's no guarantee that they would like the accommodations that they would continue to follow. But, that's just a simple invitation to come and see. So yeah, and that, and just I just think, just the response to the excitement of watching the gospel story unfold that you see, particularly in these texts that we're going through, and we're as we get through the season of a little bit further into this season of Epiphany, we're about to start a new series this weekend.
Okay.
And we as I was looking ahead, we've got several weeks that we're going to be in the Sermon on the Mount, which is Jesus's big public teaching.
Right.
And so I'm excited about this message series that's coming up, and we'll be jumping on that starting this weekend. There's some other things that are happening this weekend too. Maybe we should talk about.
Absolutely. We as a church and just for kind of some knowledge base, we had a vote a couple weeks ago about moving to one service, and this got brought up over an energy of the potential of coming together, and with our services and the people in them, we saw some stories of people who were meeting people in the other service and friendships and stuff that were growing, and we said this is something maybe we need to consider.
Right,
is bringing everybody under one service time, and I think there's a lot of cool potential with that. So starting. Well, I guess it'll be February, is it 5th?
It's February 5th.
We'll officially be moving to one service as a church, which will start at 10 o'clock.
Right.
We do have a one service coming up this weekend, but that was kind of a scheduled one already for a fifth Sunday.
Yeah, so let's talk about them in order. So,
okay.
Yeah, we did have a one service planned, and so that will be this Sunday at 10 o'clock. There is a coffee hour, or coffee
Beforehand.
half hour,
Yep.
that's been sponsored by one of the Sunday school classes. And so I invite you to come early and enjoy that
coffee,
time and
some
fellowship.
donuts.
And then afterwards, we're going to have a great, they're always great, cover dish dinner.
Potluck.
And we always enjoyed that. And so whenever fifth Sundays roll around throughout the year, we'll kind of do this kind of thing and have something. I mean, we've had food trucks, and we've had, last year we did a big slip and slide thing and games outside. So there'll be different each week, and we'll always be a potluck.
Right.
But we'll always do something special on fifth Sundays.
That's right.
But the next week is when we move into this new schedule. With one combined 10 o'clock service.
Yeah.
And then children's programming is going to take place, during the worship service at 10.
Correct.
And then 11:15, right?
Yep. During the Grow Group Hour.
Grow Group Hour. And so we do have some Sunday school classes that are a meeting before the 10 o'clock service. But primarily as we're focusing forward, we're looking, because we now got some space opened up for some new groups. And there's at least one group that I know of, maybe more, that are already being formed for that 11:15 hour. And we anticipate several more because we got some space now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now that there's some opening and we've identified some definite needs in the congregation, we're looking to kind of get some more groups going that can help everybody kind of get into community, but also into deeper discipleship as well. So it kind of catches two or three of our pillars in one fell swoop there.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it'll be good. So we hope you come join us for that if you are in the area, and if you're not in the area but you come visit, come join us and hang out with us. We'd love to see you there at 10 o'clock, and it'll be good. It'll be a lot of fun. We're excited about it. But for this podcast, for talking about evangelism, maybe it is as simple as just asking, would you like to come to church with me?
Yeah.
Maybe it's as simple as that. But ultimately, the goal of it is to help introduce people to Jesus, to really come and see how much of an impact he has in our lives. So we want to invite you guys to think about that, dive into that in yourself personally, whether it's in your own quiet time or you just take a moment out in nature to think about, like, who is somebody maybe I could invite in the next week or so to come meet Jesus, whether that's the church with you or it's to get them to plugged into a different church, whatever. The goal is still the same. It's to help more people come to know Christ. So, Dave, I think we've kind of wrapped this up.
Sure.
They know they can find us on the website. They can find us on Facebook. You can drop comments if you have anything. The emails, deepdive@hickoryflat.org. send it to our personal, whatever. We'd love to be in community with you guys in a variety of ways. That's part of the reason why this exists. And yeah, do you have anything else to add?
No, just hope to see everybody this Sunday.
See you Sunday, and we'll catch you later. Take care.
God bless.